The shattered mirror. The night everything broke. The champagne tower sparkled under the crystal chandelier like a promise about to be fulfilled. Elena Martinez stood at the entrance of the Grand Belmore Hotel's ballroom, her heart racing with excitement. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. The engagement party she and Marcus had planned for 3 months was finally happening. 200 guests, including her family, friends, and Marcus's important business contacts, would celebrate their love and upcoming wedding. She smoothed down her emerald silk dress, the one Marcus had said made her eyes look like precious stones. Her grandmother's diamond earrings caught the light as she turned her head, searching the crowd for her fiancé. Marcus Sterling was supposed to meet her at the entrance 15 minutes ago, but he was always running late. She had learned to accept this small flaw in an otherwise perfect man. "Looking for someone, dear?" Her mother approached with a concerned expression. "Marcus still hasn't arrived? He texted 10 minutes ago. Something about a last-minute business call," Elena explained, checking her phone again. "Nothing. You know how demanding his work is." Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. Elena knew her parents had reservations about Marcus. They thought the relationship had moved too fast, that she didn't really know him despite dating for 18 months. But Elena was 28 years old and capable of making her own decisions. Marcus was successful, charming, and he had chosen her out of all the women who wanted him. "I'll go check the study upstairs," Elena decided. He might be finishing his call there. The discovery that changed everything. The corridor leading to the hotel's private offices was quiet, isolated from the party noise below. Elena's heels clicked against the marble floor as she approached the study at the end of the hall. Light spilled from under the door, and she could hear voices inside. Relief washed over her. Marcus was here. She reached for the handle, ready to playfully scold him for making her worry, when she heard a woman's laugh. Not just any laugh. Sophia's laugh. Her best friend since college, her maid of honor. The woman she trusted more than anyone except Marcus. Elena's hand froze on the door handle. Something felt wrong. The laughter was too intimate, too familiar. She told herself she was being paranoid, that there was a perfectly innocent explanation. But her instinct screamed at her to look, to know, to see the truth. She pushed the door open slowly, quietly. The scene that greeted her would be burned into her memory forever. Marcus had Sophia pressed against the massive oak desk, his hands tangled in her blonde hair, kissing her with a passion that Elena had thought belonged only to them. Sophia's dress, a red number that Elena had helped her pick out just last week, was hiked up around her thighs. They were so lost in each other that they didn't hear the door open. "Marcus!" Elena's voice came out as a whisper, but it shattered the moment like a stone through glass. They broke apart, their faces showing a sequence of emotions Elena catalogued in slow motion. Shock, guilt, panic, and then something worse. Relief. Sophia actually looked relieved, as if a burden had been lifted. "Elena, I can explain," Marcus started, straightening his tie with shaking hands. "How long?" Elena heard herself ask, her voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. Sophia stepped forward, her expression transforming into something Elena had never seen before. Defiance. "Does it matter? Elena, you need to understand." "How long?" Elena repeated, her eyes locked on Marcus. He had the decency to look at the floor. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half their engagement. Elena's mind raced backward, recounting all the time Sophia had been there to comfort her when Marcus canceled plans, all the girls' nights where Sophia had encouraged her to be patient with him, all the wedding planning sessions where Sophia had acted so excited and supportive. "I love him, Elena," Sophia said, her voice gaining strength. "We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And honestly, you two were never really right for each other. You're too safe for someone like Marcus. He needs someone who understands his ambition, his drive." The cruelty of those words hit Elena like a physical blow. Safe. She had been called boring, predictable, plain her whole life, and she had thought Marcus saw past all that. Now she understood he had simply settled for her until something more exciting came along. "Get out," Elena said quietly. "Elena, please, we need to talk about this." Marcus stepped toward her. "Get out." Her voice rose, echoing off the walls. "Both of you. Get out of my sight before I start screaming and bring everyone up here to see what kind of people you really are." 3 months of numbness. The engagement party had been cancelled with a hastily written note about a family emergency. Elena had grabbed her purse and walked out of the hotel, ignoring her mother's calls, Sophia's texts, Marcus's attempts to explain. She had driven home in a daze, packed a bag, and disappeared to her aunt's beach house for 3 weeks. When she finally returned to her apartment in the city, she found it stripped of Marcus's belongings. He had taken everything, even some items that were hers, as if erasing any evidence he had ever loved her. Or pretended to. Sophia had tried to reach out twice. First, a long email explaining how their love was meant to be, and asking for Elena's forgiveness and understanding. Second, a text message informing Elena that she and Marcus were now officially together, and hoped they could all be mature about this. Elena had blocked both their numbers, deleted all social media, and thrown herself into work at the architectural firm where she designed commercial spaces. Her colleagues noticed her transformation. The warm, friendly Elena who always brought homemade cookies and remembered everyone's birthdays had been replaced by a focused, distant professional who arrived early, left late, and spoke only when necessary. Her apartment became a fortress of solitude. She stopped accepting invitations from concerned friends. She ignored her parents' weekly calls urging her to talk to a therapist. She existed in a gray fog, moving through each day with mechanical precision, feeling nothing because feeling anything meant confronting the massive crater of betrayal in her chest. Then, on a cold November afternoon exactly 3 months after the night her life exploded, a package arrived. The mysterious offering. Elena almost threw it away without opening it. The brown paper wrapping had no return address, just her name written in elegant calligraphy. But curiosity won over caution, and she carefully opened the package at her kitchen table. Inside was a leather folder containing documents that made her blood run cold. Financial records, emails, contracts, all bearing Marcus Sterling's signature. As she read through them, a pattern emerged. Marcus had been stealing from his clients, moving money through shell companies, fabricating investment returns. He was running an elaborate fraud scheme, and according to these documents, he had been doing it for years. At the bottom of the folder was a single card made of heavy cream-colored paper. The message was typed in the same elegant font as her name on the package. "Marcus Sterling destroyed my family. He will destroy others unless he is stopped. I have been gathering evidence for 2 years. You have every reason to want him exposed. Together we can bring him to justice. If you're interested in learning more, come to the address below tomorrow at 8 p.m. Come alone. Bring this folder. Someone who understands your pain." An address in an upscale part of the city followed. Elena sat at her table for hours, reading and rereading the documents, examining the card, weighing her options. Part of her wanted to throw everything away and continue her numb existence. Marcus and Sophia were her past, and she was trying to move forward, even if forward meant just surviving each day. But another part of her, a part she barely recognized, wanted something else. Not revenge exactly. Justice. Accountability. The satisfaction of knowing that Marcus would face consequences for his actions, that he wouldn't simply get away with hurting people because he was charming and confident. By midnight, Elena had made her decision. The meeting that changed everything. The address led to a penthouse in one of the city's most exclusive buildings. Elena had dressed carefully for this meeting, choosing a simple black suit that made her look professional and serious. She carried the leather folder in her briefcase, her heart pounding as the elevator climbed to the top floor. The door opened before she could knock, revealing a man who didn't match any of her expectations. She had imagined someone older, perhaps bitter and vengeful. Instead, Damian Cross was probably in his mid-30s, tall and lean, with dark hair and eyes that held both intelligence and barely concealed anger. He wore expensive casual clothes, jeans and a black sweater, and moved with the controlled grace of someone who had learned to manage intense emotions. "Miss Martinez," he greeted her with a slight nod. "Thank you for coming. Please come in." The penthouse was modern and minimalist, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city lights. Everything was in shades of black, white, and gray, as if color had been deliberately banished. "Who are you?" Elena asked, remaining near the door, keeping her exit clear. My name is Damien Cross. 5 years ago, Marcus Sterling convinced my father to invest his entire pension and life savings into a development project. It was all fabricated. The project never existed. My father lost everything. The stress triggered a heart attack. He died 6 months later. My mother followed him a year after that. Broken heart, the doctors said, though I suspect it was more complicated than that. His voice remained steady as he recounted this tragedy, but Elena saw his hands clench briefly before he controlled himself. I'm sorry for your loss, Elena said softly. But why contact me now? Why not go to the police with this evidence? Damien moved to the windows looking out at the city. Because Marcus is clever. He has connections, expensive lawyers, and he's very good at covering his tracks. Every time I've tried to expose him, he's managed to slip away, to discredit the evidence, to make it disappear. He's been investigated twice and walked away clean both times. He turned to face her. But you're different, Elena. You were close to him. You have access to his world, his social circle, his business contacts. You're the perfect Trojan horse. And more importantly, you have the motivation to see this through. You want to use me to get to him, Elena stated flatly. I want to partner with you to bring down a criminal who has hurt too many people, Damien corrected. The evidence I've gathered is substantial, but I need more. I need someone on the inside who can get close to him again, who can gather the final pieces we need to ensure he can't escape this time. Someone he would never suspect because he thinks you're too weak, too broken to fight back. Elena felt a spark of anger at those words, even though she knew Damien was describing how Marcus viewed her. In 6 months, Marcus is marrying Sophia, Damien continued, pulling out a glossy wedding invitation from his pocket. I intercepted this from their mailing list. They're planning a lavish wedding, funded by money Marcus stole from people like my father. While he's preparing for his happy future, his victims are struggling to survive. He handed Elena the invitation. Seeing their names together in elegant script, announcing their love and commitment, made Elena's stomach turn. But it also ignited something she hadn't felt in months. Fury. What exactly are you proposing? She asked, meeting his intense gaze. 6 months of working together. I'll teach you everything you need to know about his business operations, how to spot his tricks, how to gather evidence that can't be dismissed. You'll reinvent yourself, become someone new, someone powerful enough to move in his circles again. When you're ready, you'll re-enter his world, and will systematically dismantle everything he's built on lies and theft. And what happens to him at the end? He goes to prison. For a very long time. Everything he stole gets returned to his victims. And Sophia gets to experience what it's like when the person she loves is taken away from her. Elena looked at the invitation in her hands, then at the leather folder full of evidence, then at Damien Cross, this stranger who had somehow seen her pain and offered her a purpose beyond mere survival. I want one condition, she said finally. This isn't just about Marcus. Sophia knew what she was doing. She betrayed our friendship deliberately. I want her to face consequences too. A slow smile crossed Damien's face. I think we're going to work very well together, Elena Martinez. Welcome to the team. As they shook hands, sealing their partnership in revenge and justice, Elena felt something shift inside her. The numbness that had protected her for 3 months began to crack, replaced by a clear, cold determination. Marcus Sterling had taken everything from her. Her trust, her confidence, her dreams of the future. Now she would take something from him. His freedom, his reputation, and the false paradise he had built on other people's suffering. The game was about to begin, and Elena was no longer the naive, trusting woman who had walked into that study 3 months ago. She was becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone capable of fighting back. And she was going to win. The transformation begins. The morning after her meeting with Damien, Elena woke up with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in months. The gray fog that had surrounded her existence was lifting, replaced by crystal-clear focus. She had a mission now, a reason to get out of bed that went beyond merely surviving another day. Damien had given her homework before she left his penthouse. Make a list of everything Marcus knew about her, every weakness he could exploit, every insecurity he had witnessed. Then, she was to imagine the opposite of that person. That would be her new identity. Elena sat at her kitchen table with a notebook and began writing. Marcus knew her as predictable, someone who avoided confrontation, who always chose the safe path. He knew she was uncomfortable with wealth and power, that she preferred small gatherings to large events. He knew she dressed conservatively, spoke softly, and never drew attention to herself. He knew she worked in a modest position at the architectural firm, content to support others' visions rather than pursuing her own. As she wrote, Elena felt something close to excitement. Becoming the opposite of who she had been wasn't just about fooling Marcus. It was about discovering who she could have been if she hadn't spent years making herself smaller to fit into other people's expectations. 3 days later, she met Damien at an exclusive boutique in the fashion district. The owner, a striking woman named Isabel, greeted Damien with familiar warmth before turning her assessing gaze on Elena. "So this is her," Isabel said, circling Elena slowly. "I can work with this. Good bone structure, beautiful eyes. We just need to bring out what's been hiding underneath all those safe choices." For the next 6 hours, Elena was transformed. Isabel and her team worked like artists, cutting Elena's long brown hair into a sleek shoulder-length style with subtle highlights that caught the light. They taught her makeup techniques that emphasized her eyes and cheekbones, making her look sophisticated rather than plain. They filled multiple garment bags with designer clothes that fit perfectly and made her feel powerful. Tailored suits in bold colors, elegant evening wear, casual outfits that somehow looked expensive even in their simplicity. "Confidence is 90% of the transformation," Isabel explained as Elena stared at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. "The clothes give you armor, but you have to believe you deserve to wear them. You have to walk into a room like you own it, like you belong in spaces that once intimidated you." Damien had been watching from a distance, and when Elena finally emerged in a charcoal suit with a silk blouse the color of deep wine, his expression shifted to something like approval. "Better," he said simply. "Now we work on everything else." The education of Elena Martinez. The next 3 months were the most intense of Elena's life. Damien had transformed his penthouse into a training ground, and Elena was his only student in a very specific curriculum. Every morning at 6, she arrived for physical training. Not traditional exercise but self-defense, posture coaching, and body language lessons taught by a former military consultant named Victor. He taught her how to carry herself with authority, how to use space to her advantage, how to read other people's intentions through their movements. In Marcus's world, weakness is exploited instantly, Victor explained during one session. You need to project strength in every gesture, every glance. Make people believe you're someone they should take seriously, someone they shouldn't underestimate. From 8 to noon, Damien himself took over, teaching her about finance, investment strategies, and the complex world of corporate manipulation. He explained how Marcus's schemes worked, how he found vulnerable targets, how he created the illusion of legitimacy. Elena learned to spot the red flags she had missed when she was dating Marcus, the small inconsistencies that should have warned her something was wrong. "He's a predator," Damien said during one lesson, his voice tight with controlled anger. "He identifies people who want to believe in something, who need to trust someone. Then he becomes exactly what they need until he's taken everything they have." But the lessons went beyond understanding Marcus's methods. Damien taught Elena how to build her own professional identity, how to research companies and investments, how to speak the language of the wealthy and powerful. He introduced her to contacts in the business world, people who owed him favors and could help establish Elena's new reputation. "You're not going to infiltrate Marcus's circle as his ex-girlfriend," Damien explained. "You're going to enter as someone completely new. Elena Martinez, successful investor and business consultant who's been working in overseas markets for the past year. Someone who's just returned to the city with impressive credentials and the capital to back them up." The afternoons were dedicated to social training. A former socialite named Catherine taught Elena the unspoken rules of high society, which fork to use at formal dinners, how to navigate conversations at exclusive events, how to make connections and gather information without appearing too eager. Catherine was in her 60s, elegant and sharp, and she didn't tolerate mistakes. In Marcus's world, people are constantly performing. Catherine instructed. Everyone is presenting a carefully curated version of themselves. Your job is to present a version that's more compelling, more intriguing than theirs. Make them want to know you, want to impress you. Evenings were for homework, reading financial journals, studying Marcus's known associates, memorizing details about companies and trends, preparing herself for any conversation she might encounter. Elena fell into bed exhausted each night, but it was a good exhaustion, the kind that came from purpose and progress. The unexpected connection. As weeks turned into months, Elena noticed a shift in her relationship with Damien. Their working partnership had begun formally, almost coldly, but gradually something else emerged between them. It started with small moments. Damien bringing her coffee during late-night study sessions, remembering exactly how she liked it. Elena noticing when he was having a difficult day, usually when they discussed his parents, and knowing when to push forward and when to suggest a break. They began sharing stories during their rare moments of downtime. Elena talking about her childhood dreams of becoming an architect, Damien describing his father's pride in the family business before Marcus destroyed it. One evening, after a particularly grueling training session, they sat on Damien's terrace overlooking the city. The spring air was cool, and Elena had wrapped herself in a blanket Damien had provided. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Of course. Why are you really doing this? Not just for your parents. There's something else." Damien was quiet for a long moment, his profile sharp against the city lights. "I had a sister," he said finally. "Younger than me by 3 years. Brilliant, kind, full of life. When my father lost everything when he died, she blamed herself. She thought if she had been more successful, if she had earned more money, she could have helped him. The guilt consumed her. She started making reckless decisions trying to earn back what was lost. She got involved with dangerous people, borrowed money from worse ones." His voice remained steady, but Elena saw his hands grip the railing. "She died 2 years ago. Officially it was ruled an accident, but I know better. The people she owed, they made sure she couldn't repay them. Marcus Sterling might not have pulled the trigger, but he set in motion the events that killed my entire family. So yes, this is about justice. But it's also about making sure no one else's family gets destroyed the way mine was." Elena reached out and placed her hand over his. The gesture was instinctive, comforting, and Damien looked at their joined hands with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I'm so sorry for everything you've lost." "We've both lost things we can't get back," Damien replied, turning his hand to clasp hers properly. "But maybe we can prevent others from experiencing the same pain." That night marked a shift. They were no longer just partners in revenge. They were becoming something more complex, something neither of them had anticipated or knew how to navigate. Re-entering the world. For months after her first meeting with Damien, Elena was ready to debut her new identity. The plan was carefully orchestrated. She would attend a charity gala where Marcus and Sophia would be present. But she wouldn't approach them. Instead, she would let herself be seen, let rumors spread, let curiosity build. The night of the gala, Elena stood in front of the mirror in Damien's guest room, barely recognizing herself. The woman looking back was sophisticated, confident, wearing a midnight blue gown that made her look like she belonged in rooms full of powerful people. Her makeup was flawless, her hair styled in elegant waves, and most importantly, her eyes held a strength that hadn't been there 6 months ago. Damien appeared in the doorway wearing a tailored tuxedo, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. "You're staring," Elena said, a slight smile playing at her lips. "You look." He searched for words. "Powerful. Ready. Like someone who could walk into any room and own it." "That's the goal," Elena replied, but her heart was racing. Not from nervousness about the plan, but from the way Damien was looking at her, like she was someone precious and dangerous all at once. They arrived at the gala separately as planned. Elena entered alone, pausing at the top of the grand staircase just long enough for people to notice her. She saw heads turn, heard whispers, and felt a thrill of satisfaction. The old Elena would have hurried down those stairs trying to blend in. The new Elena descended slowly, confidently, as if she owned every step. Damien had prepared her well. Within minutes, people were approaching her, introducing themselves, asking about her work in overseas markets. She navigated conversations smoothly, dropping carefully prepared details about successful investments and business ventures, all verified and real thanks to Damien's connections. And then she saw them. Marcus and Sophia stood near the bar, both dressed impeccably, looking like the perfect couple. Sophia wore white, which seemed deliberately provocative given that their wedding was only 2 months away. Marcus had his arm around her waist, speaking to a group of business associates with his characteristic charm. Elena felt Damien's presence beside her before she heard his voice. "You don't have to do this tonight. We can leave." "No," Elena said firmly, surprised by her own steadiness. "I need to see if I can do this. If I can be in the same room with them without falling apart." She watched Marcus laugh at someone's joke, the same laugh she had once loved, and felt nothing. No pain, no longing. Just a cool assessment of a man she now understood was fundamentally dishonest. The power of that realization steadied her even more. "I'm okay," she told Damien. "Actually, I'm better than okay. Looking at him now, knowing what I know, I can't believe I ever thought he was worth my love." The first move. Elena's opportunity came unexpectedly. A prominent investor named Gerald Hutchins approached her, someone Damien had identified as a crucial contact. During their conversation, Marcus happened to walk by, his attention caught by Gerald's animated conversation. "Elena Martinez," Gerald was saying loudly, "made $3 million on the Singapore tech market in under a year. Most impressive newcomer I've seen in a decade." Marcus's head turned sharply at the name Elena. His eyes swept over her, and Elena saw the exact moment he realized who she was. His face went through a series of expressions: shock, confusion, and then something calculating. Elena met his gaze steadily, coolly, before turning back to Gerald as if Marcus was nobody of importance. It was a perfect power move, one Catherine had drilled into her during their social training. Act as if your enemy is beneath your notice. "Excuse me," Marcus interrupted, his charm cranking up to maximum. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I couldn't help overhearing. Elena Martinez? I believe we've met before." Elena turned to him with a polite but distant smile. "I don't believe so. I've been working abroad for quite some time. Perhaps you're thinking of someone else." The dismissal was subtle but definite. Marcus's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "No, I'm quite sure. You look very familiar." He extended his hand. "Marcus Sterling. Perhaps we met at a business function." Elena let him hang there for just a beat too long before taking his hand briefly. "Perhaps. I attend so many events, it's difficult to remember everyone. If you'll excuse me, Mr. Sterling, Gerald and I were discussing a potential investment opportunity." She turned back to Gerald, effectively dismissing Marcus. From the corner of her eye, she saw Sophia approaching, her expression curious and slightly suspicious. This was the moment Elena had been preparing for, the first real test of her transformation. "Marcus, who's your new friend?" Sophia asked, linking her arm through his possessively. Elena looked at Sophia directly for the first time in 6 months. Up close, she could see the changes in her former friend. Harder edges around her eyes, a tightness in her smile that suggested the fairy tale romance wasn't quite as perfect as it appeared from the outside. "I don't believe we've been properly introduced," Elena said smoothly, extending her hand. "Elena Martinez." Sophia took her hand automatically, still trying to place her. "Sophia Chun. Are you new to the city?" "Recently returned from Singapore. I've been working in international markets, but I decided it was time to bring my expertise back home." Recognition flickered in Sophia's eyes, uncertainty crossing her face. "Elena Martinez? I knew an Elena once, but the world is full of Elenas," Elena said with a slight smile. "Now if you'll excuse me, I see someone I need to speak with. Gerald, we'll continue our conversation next week. Mr. Sterling, Miss Chan, enjoy your evening." She walked away with perfect composure, feeling their eyes on her back. Once she was out of sight, she found Damien waiting in a quiet alcove. "How did it feel?" he asked. "Like winning the first battle of a long war," Elena replied, and she realized she was smiling. "He didn't recognize me at first." Sophia's not sure. They're off balance, which is exactly where we want them. Damien smiled back, a rare full smile that transformed his usually serious face. You were perfect. Better than perfect. You made them come to you, then dismissed them as irrelevant. That's going to drive Marcus crazy. Good, Elena said firmly. Let him wonder. Let him investigate. Everything he finds will support our story. By the time he realizes what's happening, it will be too late. The complication of feelings. As they left the gala together, Elena felt exhilarated. The plan was working. She had proven to herself that she could face Marcus and Sophia without crumbling, that she could play the game they had started and play it better than they ever could. But as Damien's car pulled away from the venue, Elena became aware of a complication she hadn't anticipated. She looked at Damien's profile as he drove, the city lights casting shadows across his face, and realized that somewhere in the past 4 months, her feelings for him had evolved beyond partnership and friendship. She cared about him, not because he was helping her get revenge, but because of who he was. Damaged and healing, angry but controlled, capable of gentleness despite his pain. He had seen her at her lowest and helped her become stronger. He trusted her with his own vulnerability, sharing his grief about his family, his guilt about not protecting his sister. What are you thinking? Damien asked, glancing at her. That this is more complicated than I expected, Elena admitted. The plan. Everything, she said softly. When we started this, it was simple. Get justice, make them pay, move on with our lives. But now it's not simple anymore, Damien finished, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. I know. I've been feeling it too. They drove in silence for a few minutes before Damien pulled over into a quiet spot overlooking the river. The city spread out before them, beautiful and indifferent to their struggles. Elena, I need to be honest with you about something, Damien said, turning to face her. When I first contacted you, you were part of the plan. Someone who could help me get to Marcus. But these past months working with you, watching you transform yourself, not because you had to but because you chose to. You've become more important to me than the revenge. Elena's heart raced. Damien, let me finish, he interrupted gently. I'm falling for you and that terrifies me. Because what if my feelings compromise the plan? What if I make decisions to protect you instead of stopping Marcus? What if we succeed and then discover that revenge was all we had in common? Those are all valid fears, Elena said carefully. But they're also assuming that we're only capable of connecting over shared pain and anger. What if we're actually connecting despite those things? What if there's something real here that has nothing to do with Marcus or the plan? Damien reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture achingly tender. I want to believe that. But I also don't want to hurt you. You've been hurt enough. Then don't, Elena said simply. Don't hurt me. And I won't hurt you. We can figure this out as we go together. But I need you to know that I have feelings for you too, Damien. Real feelings that scare me because they're not part of the plan either. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away, and kissed her softly. It was nothing like kissing Marcus had been. This was careful, questioning, full of possibility rather than possession. When they finally pulled apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. We're still going to destroy Marcus, she whispered. Absolutely, Damien agreed. But maybe we can build something new at the same time. Something that's just ours, that has nothing to do with him. I'd like that, Elena said. They sat there for a long time, holding each other. Two broken people who had found unexpected connection in their shared quest for justice. The plan to bring down Marcus Sterling continued.